Travis Manson's in the house today.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the program, everyone. This is Cortland Hooked, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooks Robinson. I'm here with my co-host, Richard Nicoletti, and special guest in studio today, Mr. Smallmouth Crush, Travis Manson.
Well, thanks for having me along. I'm excited to be part of this journey. This is an awesome little studio setup you got.
Appreciate it. Took about 2 weeks to build, to be honest with you.
Did you build any of it?
I didn't do the wood, but
did a lot of it.
We did the decorating.
I can tell.
Looked at a lot of Martha Stewart type magazines and lava lamp, leg lamp. We filled it in pretty good.
Got an eye for it.
Yeah. So anyways, it's nice to have you in studio. This is our first ever podcast. So this helps kind of leave out the whole Zoom meeting, Wi-Fi interruption type stuff. So this is actually probably easier on us than doing something, recorded. So, thanks for coming by. You're headed, back to Pennsylvania from?
Back home from the St. Lawrence River.
Guiding, fishing tournament? What are we doing up there?
Mostly guiding this week.
All right. How many times do you go from PA to St. Lawrence and back, let's say, in a year, you think?
Maybe 15. Jesus. 12 to 15 times.
Was that like 6 hours total?
It's not that bad. It's about
How many miles you got on your truck right now?
Way too many. Check engine light just came on.
Well, that happens with Fords anyway. So
yes, it does.
All right. So for those of you that don't know Travis, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Travis, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Wisconsin, just south of Green Bay, north of Milwaukee, Fox Cities, Lake Winnebago. If you look at a map of Wisconsin, It's the biggest inland lake.
Yep.
There, I pretty much grew up within minutes of what's called the Upper Lakes, which is a chain, the Wolf River system that runs into Lake Winnebago, the Fox, the Bay of Green Bay, out to Lake Michigan.
When did you? And then you're in PA now. Mm-hmm. When do you move from? Were you anywhere in between?
No. Went straight from Wisconsin to Pennsylvania.
How old were you when that happened?
I was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, really? So you were in Wisconsin for a long time.
Most of my life. Yep.
Did you go to school anywhere? High school? College? Did you drop out?
I skipped
Nothing?
all that.
Did you skip all that?
Yeah,
just
early
fished?
Drop off. Yeah.
Probably why you're a good.
Of course, yeah.
Probably why you're a good.
All my schooling was done in Wisconsin.
All right, so you're in PA. You gonna stay there forever?
I doubt it.
You gonna move? What's your plan here? You take 15 trips a year to the St. Lawrence River. It's 6 hours one way. I see like a move coming up.
I'm sure at some point we'll be calling Jefferson County home in upstate New York on the shores of Lake Ontario.
In the next, what do you think? Year, 2, 5 years?
I can't speculate.
All right. So you're not going to drive by I feel like you're going to swing in all the time. When you're doing that, but then once you move up there, you're not going to come hang out with us anymore. Too far away.
Yeah.
I know you give me crap for that because Trav invites me up to go fishing. I'm like, dude, it's 2 hours. You're like, that's nothing. It's nothing. Get up here. Well, anyways, so you run a YouTube show called Smallmouth Crush. If you literally type in the word smallmouth in YouTube, you're like the second line item that pops up. So you got to be doing something right here. For our viewers that don't know what Smallmouth Crush, it's basically a brand at this point. Like, what is Smallmouth Crush? Like, how can people find it? Like, what is it? Is it a show? Is it like, you know what I mean? What's the rundown with Smallmouth?
So, be honest with you, I'm not even sure what it is just yet. So we're still developing.
How long has it been out there?
About 5 years now.
Okay.
We're going on 5 years. So I decided when I was living in Pennsylvania, I was fishing a lot of local tournaments. And I was like, why don't I start videotaping, some of my fishing adventures and putting them on YouTube? And I'm like, I did some research. I'm like, well, if I want to do this right, I got to pick a name for my channel. I got to figure some things out. I want to become somewhat strategic about it because I was like, I think I can make videos that people would enjoy and want to watch.
Yep.
And so I decided the name Smallmouth Crush for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to make sure there was something that wasn't on any social media platforms or any domains or anything like that I could own it all. And so a lot of research went in. I wish I had my list with me of some of the other names that I, had at the time. I'm like, Smallmouth Crush, what's that mean? Does he have a crush on smallmouth?
Yeah, kind of weird, but okay.
Kind of weird. Or is it because of the way they crush a bait? I don't know. So
dude crushes smallmouth.
Yeah, you do crush smallmouth. But
that's what I think of.
Yeah. And so I just said Smallmouth Crush because I really do love chasing smallmouth. I like all types of fishing. I've fished at a very early age for pretty much anything growing up in Wisconsin. But really, the love of big water smallmouth is kind of what I focus on. Although I still fish a lot of largemouth. I do still guide part-time or half the year, I should say, down on the Chesapeake Bay for largemouth and still fish plenty of largemouth type events.
But you love smallmouth.
Yeah, there's something I think, and people ask me all the time, what is it about smallmouth? I really think it's the environment that they live in. It's the scenery. It's the way the areas that you fish for them is totally different than a lot of these places around the country where you may be in some big backwater area or a lot of vegetation or man-made structure.
Yep.
Reservoirs. Here you're out in just gorgeous landscape and big clear water and huge smallmouth.
It is funny you say that. Like smallmouth, you're kind of near the Susquehanna River, and so are we. You can catch a ton of smallmouth in Susquehanna River. But St. Lawrence River, Lake Ontario, like where you had taken me, that's open water. There's times when you look out where you're fishing and you see Canada on the other side. It's about as open as it gets. And I had never done that type of fishing. So I was pretty new to I had no idea where we were going, but you're right. It is definitely neat. You set up on a big drift, good wind, you know where the fish are. So it helps, but, smallmouth are cool because you can get them in rivers, you know what I mean? But that Lake Ontario, St. Lawrence fishery is just, it's on another level.
Yeah.
Another level.
It's really all the Great Lakes if you think about it.
Yeah, you mentioned that. When I did your show, I think I had asked you that. And you're right, it is, Lake Erie, where you grew up, Wisconsin. Do you think that the fishery, St. Lawrence, Lake Ontario, is the best? Obviously, you don't go to the other places as much.
Right.
But how do you compare that up there, what you do on a weekly basis, to other places you target smallmouth on the Great Lakes?
So I think it's definitely one of the best. I can't say it is the best.
It did get voted #1 fishery in the country. Last year, the year before?
Last year.
From, what was it, Bass something, some publication.
Bass Nation.
Yeah, it was voted #1 bass fishery in the country. So it's got to be #1, right?
You'd think. However, there's some secluded areas of Lake Michigan, even Lake Huron, and a lake that I don't have a whole lot of time on would be Lake Superior. Lake Superior, especially if you're talking about the Canadian side, that's almost unexplored.
Right.
Even Lake Huron is.
Yeah, those are massive.
Right. I think there's probably potential of some really good fishing in areas that people just don't have access to.
Sure.
So one thing I do like, or I shouldn't say like, but noticed, is there's a lot of areas that get a lot more pressure on the Great Lakes. And I think the fishing is not as easy at times when you get that much pressure and that amount of boat over the top of these fish.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys when we went too. It was opening week, but you could see how
we did fish a lot of community holes too.
Yeah.
You can still, there's plenty of days when I'm out there, I don't see another bass boat.
Sure. We couldn't get out there. There were 5-footers that day. So, well, that's interesting. So you started Smallmouth Crush doing videos. What triggered you to start doing videos? Did you see someone else doing it and you're like, you know what, I can do that better? or like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
what makes you want to start filming yourself and putting yourself out there on YouTube?
Okay, so fast forward like 3 years earlier, YouTube was just getting for fishing was starting to grow.
Yep.
I cannot think it was Gene Jensen. Does that name ring a bell?
Does not.
What was he? Well, he is a big YouTuber, and I hope I'm saying his name right.
There's a fly fishing page, the Jensens, I believe.
No,
They're like out in New Zealand.
Those guys are sick too.
Yeah.
Anyways, so my friend said, "Hey, why don't you do YouTube videos about fishing?" And I'm like, "Well, there's all these other people doing it." And
Right.
I'm like, I don't know. It's just, and I kind of blew it off for 2 or 3 years. So I'm kind of upset. Not upset, but I'm like, man, if I would have started 3 years earlier, I'd have a little bit bigger jump, and I would probably have grown a little bit more
Sure.
than where I'm at now. However, looking back, I'd rather have started, if I was to start today, it's a lot more difficult now, I would assume, with all the
You don't want to be late to the party.
Right.
Sounds like you were a little bit in your eyes.
I thought so.
It was a big boom. And like, I feel like 2016, 2017, just cameras, phones, everything got better.
That was the biggest thing is the camp. You're right.
No longer needed a DSLR to shoot video.
Seriously.
Or a GoPro that would look blown.
Everyone's a YouTuber nowadays, but you kind of got to separate yourself from the rest of them with good quality content, which you have. Like your shows are dynamite.
Thank you.
When can people see your show? Like, is it a weekly, monthly? Like, how do people see Smallmouth Crush YouTube shows or your weekly shows, live shows?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I put a video out as often as I possibly can.
Sure.
Which means normally when I'm not guiding, when I have a free day and perhaps low wind, or maybe not fishing in an area that I don't mind being put on camera.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of different scenarios that happen that allow me to shoot or not shoot. So I might go a while without being able to really make a video because I'm too busy guiding, or, I'm in an area that I just don't like. When I'm on the Chesapeake, it's even hard just to shoot. Let's say I want to shoot a random largemouth fishing video. Well, you can look at the landmarks there real easy. And next thing you know, you got a bunch of people fishing those areas after they see some of this content. So I have to watch out for that, but I try to do as often as possible. I do have a live weekly show. We try to go weekly every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And it's
Mondays?
just called,
I thought we did shows on Thursdays.
It's
changed to Mondays? Mondays?
We changed Thursdays
I'm
maybe
shocked.
2 years ago.
Did you?
Year
I
and a
think
half?
that's the first time I did it.
Right.
But you're pretty steady through the off season when you're not fishing. You know what I mean? You're grinding out
Definitely.
content and stuff like that. Hey, Engineer Matt, you want to pull up Travis's YouTube channel just so people know they're on the right channel when they go to check it out? Like I said, literally type in the word smallmouth in the search bar in YouTube. Travis is like the second line item in Smallmouth Crush. So anyways, once Matt pulls that up, there's the header. You know you're on the right page. How many videos do you have right now on YouTube, you think? Rough guess.
Wow.
Shows.
500?
500.
Maybe more.
So you got some like what? Technique, informational stuff. Like people can like, could someone get dialed in smallmouth bass fishing by watching your videos? Just watching your videos and like kind of skip the learning curve a little bit. You feel like you got enough content on there that people can like seriously learn.
Is it sorted out nice and easy? No.
No.
Do I need to put some time into making some playlists? Yes.
All right.
I know where my weaknesses are.
No, it's fine. I know we were supposed to do a video that you botched, but it's
happens,
fine.
man.
We'll just shoot another one.
Technology and videoing and batteries and big water and wind
Sure.
don't mix well.
All right.
How often do you ever have clients that are like, hey, I want to get on one of your videos? Can we shoot it?
Thanks, Matt,
Sure.
for pulling that up.
Yeah, so
And that way you're kind of getting paid.
That is an add-on that I do to offer to everyone that wants a guide trip if they want me to film that day as well. I don't always put them on my YouTube channel, but they get to take a video back home, or
you have like a VIP Smallmouth Crush thing, right?
Yeah, so the VIP is members only. It's a way for people to help support the channel as far as a paying type of a membership.
But you give them more in return.
We give them more. We do one extra live show per month, and a lot of times it's things that we won't necessarily talk about to the general public. And so they just get a little bit more
A
information.
little more insight to how you're doing it.
Yes. Or whether it be baits, techniques,
Yeah.
areas, things have been working for me. Sometimes we'll have some guests. And of course, co-host Epic Eric, who's got one of the largest
Love that guy.
tackle collections out there. He also joins me. Well, he's on the live shows, but he also will join some of the VIPs as well to dish out some more information.
How'd you find Eric?
You know,
I mean, he's out there. You know, he's fishing all the time. But
mutual friend of ours, and we met and just started fishing together.
that was it.
Simple as that.
Fell in love first sight.
Yeah, pretty much.
Beautiful. Ricky and I were talking the other day, and Ricky wanted to know, and it was a good question, like, where do you see Smallmouth Crush going? Like, what's your ultimate goal at this point? You know, where do you see it in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
So I definitely believe I'll be up in more of a smallmouth fishery full-time at some point, and we'll be focusing more on in-depth videos, but more on a perhaps weekly basis. So let's say 4 really high-quality videos a month that are well edited, well done.
Yep.
And really allow people to take advantage of the information, go out and apply it, and catch fish themselves. So more talk about electronics and map breakdown, techniques, reasons why, really focus on those types of, and different techniques. You know, a lot of people, I don't know if they want to say pick on me, but they kind of like, oh, that's the dude with all the spinning rods, and, you know, he's a drop shotter and Ned rigger. And that's not always the case, but that's what I do 80% of the time because it's the most effective way for me to catch fish. But I love throwing, say, a jerk bait or a soft jerk bait, a fluke type of bait, spinner baits, chatter baits, all of that. And there's definitely places to catch giant smallmouth with those applications that I want to be able to expand on and really go into greater detail in the future. So that's really what I see is more high value, high production type of videos, as well as more tournament type of videos, whether it be practice in the actual events. I haven't been able to really fish a whole lot of tournaments this year or last year. And
did you fish in your own tournament this year?
I did. So we
had
the
first annual
Smallmouth Crush tournament up on the St. Lawrence River.
Didn't the guys that won it weigh in largemouth?
No. Someone did. They did not win. They had like 18 pounds, but it took over 25 pounds to win.
Do you think that tournaments, you're going to try to grow that every year? I mean, was it a pain to get to? I mean, it's a lot of organization.
How many people did you have in the first year?
We only had like 27 boats our first year.
It
was $500 buy-in, so it was $6,000 to win. And we paid on 5 spots and gave out some really cool plaques. I wouldn't mind doing it again or having someone volunteer to do it for me again. But taking people's phone calls and questions, even with that small amount of boats,
full-time job.
I feel for tournament directors of larger events and all the stuff.
You're also doing that at a busy time of the year for you.
Sure.
You're trying to guide,
and
you're traveling.
We didn't take any money. It was all 100% payback. So the only reason why we did is because we wanted more events to fish ourselves.
Sure.
In that area.
Yep.
So how many other tournaments did you fish this year?
Maybe 3 only.
How many did you finish?
What do you mean finish?
Like you started, we'll get there later.
Started and finished. Okay, so you're saying how many did I weigh in?
Yeah.
Well, if you're
one in the Chesapeake, right? Well, I saw that you and Eric fished in one.
If you're talking about the my tournament, I was just trying to have an enjoyable day with Eric.
Yep.
And enjoy that day, catch some big fish, and we had a few. We started the day off with one just under 6. And we had 2 other really good ones. And we were just like, I'm not worried it's going to happen. Like I've been down this road plenty of times with these fish. But it was windy that day. And I kept going further and further out in the lake. And I was fishing an area that I really haven't fished that year. But I knew that they were going to show up somewhere and that we'd run into them. And it just, time ran out on us. And we were literally throwing back 3.5 pounders. And for some reason, and I got to get over that, but I don't like coming in unless I got a mega bag. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I know someone's going to have 24, 25,
Yeah.
26 pounds. So these little 3.5s don't matter. I don't want them sitting in my live well all day, potentially, getting injured and beat up. And
Do you ever killed a fish in a tournament? I mean, on accident? I mean, it must
Sure.
happen.
It happens.
I mean, we were just out last week, fishing a local lake in Syracuse, and buddy drilled one on like I think it was a 1/2 ounce jig with a trailer, and I mean the hook barely nicked the back gill, like barely,
Mhm.
and the thing
Bled
bled
out.
fast. So like
Yeah.
we were wondering, like in a tournament that happens, what do you do?
So the best way to is try to prevent that to begin with. And so
You obviously wouldn't want to keep that fish. You know it's going to die.
Yeah.
You can't
Right.
weigh in dead fish, correct?
you can,
It's
you
a
get a
penalty, right?
penalty.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right. So the first thing I do in the morning is I'm going to have about 10 bags of ice
Yep.
at the minimum.
Your live well system is insane, by the way.
Right. But the cooler system and then storing that ice, because this is an important part of everything, is making sure you have super cold water for these fish.
Yep.
And so once I get outside of, let's say, takeoff, if we're staging out on the main river, I'll start filling my live wells right before takeoff, and then just shut them off, and then start dumping 3 bags of ice in there.
Do you want the water in your live wells equal to what the fish are coming out of, or colder? Does that make sense?
Colder.
Colder.
They even like it colder.
Okay.
Yes. So I think it settles them down a little bit. I might put a little bit of liquid in there to help them just kind of, I guess it doesn't get them too excited, kind of calms them
Relax.
down.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, fizzing fish, whether it be in 15 feet of water or what, if they need it, I've caught fish in 12 feet, and fizzing meaning, their swim bladders get full coming from the depths, and then they'll just kind of lay on their back or upside down or on their side in the live well system. And they'll make it for many, many hours that way, but they won't be able to return back down to where they need to unless you fizz them. And if you don't correct it and start making moves, through big waves and things like that,
Yeah.
and they're on their side, they're going to get beat up in your live wells. So you
For
want to
sure.
fizz them, make sure they're upright and, happy and healthy.
But
And
if you got a bleeder, is there anything you
Hmm.
can do? Because we've always heard like
Well,
pour,
I saw-
pour Coke in the mouth.
pour Coca-Cola down its mouth.
Yeah, I don't
and-
do any of that, but I'll tell you what, a
No.
lot of people are like, man, this fish is bleeding. And I hooked him in the side of his mouth and I don't understand it. So,
Sure.
so smallmouth, because their blood vessels coming up, they'll start bleeding. And it's just a small amount of blood. It doesn't hurt the fish. But I understand, like, if you get it in their tongue or
It was like back
in their
tongue. It was
gill,
like back like tongue.
you just hope for the best. I mean, there's nothing I've
Right.
noticed that I can do differently. If it's a small, like I said, I try not to put anything under 4 pounds in my live well. The bad thing is there's days, and we've all been there, where, you might have 3 6-pounders, and then you really could use those 2 and 3.5s, right? Because you would have had a pretty good bag.
Mhm.
But that's just my decision when I'm out there.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw back 3.5.
Those are your pets.
Because I don't want to take that chance, and I expect to do better out there.
Sure.
I'm at that point where I'm not in it for, I want to come in with 18, 19 pounds. I want to come in with a solid bag that's what you need when you're out there.
Yep.
It's
Something
very
you're gonna be
rarely
proud
that
of.
20 pounds does it anymore
Yeah.
at all.
A lot of our local tournaments, 20 pounds is like 4th, 5th.
Yeah.
it's
It's
And it's to the
crazy.
point where in the spring, especially pre-spawn, now there's a couple counties up there where it's closed.
Correct.
But the counties where it's open, I mean, a 30-pound bag used to be cool. And now it's expected that time of year.
Right.
Like, you better have
The
5,
fish
6
just
pounders.
they're a little fatter.
You just get
pre-spawn.
like, hey, good job. Nice 30-pound bag.
Yeah.
Everyone's got 30 pounds this
Right.
week up
do you
here.
do you ever feel guilty like if you have, because we have a 2000 javelin and we have 2 live wells, but the live wells are not more than 22 inches across, 24 inches. So when we put like a 4.5, 5 in there, just one fish feels like the thing has no room at all. So
Right.
are the boats nowadays just
what
like
kind of
live wells are
boat do you have?
that
So
much bigger? And
Yeah. So I run a Camus, and the live wells are great. They're huge.
Oh, that's right.
yeah,
Plenty of room.
yeah, when we fished, so back in June, anyways, early
And
summer or
June,
something.
1st of July, something like that.
We had a pretty good day for smallmouth, but then we bumped into just an epic crappie blitz, I will call it. And I don't keep fish that often, but when you're catching, I mean, some of these crappie were so. We caught like a few crappie, and we're like, all right, we're taking
They were
these
bigger
things
than
home.
this bluegill he got mounted here.
They were.
Yeah.
I mean, I was getting fillets cleaning them, which you're a dick, by the way, for making me keep all those fish.
It was just a lack of communication is all that was.
Yeah, it tends to happen with you. But yeah, the live wells, like that boat. So I've been fortunate enough. I worked at Cortland for, I don't know, like 10 years now. I've been fortunate enough to jump on boats with pro team members, ambassadors, you know, guides, friends of the company. You know, I've been on, so lucky, some of the nicest Maverick skiffs in Florida, tarpon fishing, 36-foot yellowfins in the White Marlin Open, 57-foot Vikings. Like, just, I've been so fortunate to fish on all these epic boats. But your boat, I honestly have to say, and I'm not greasing you up here, was probably one of the nicest boats I've ever been on. I mean, that thing, we were hitting 4 or 5 footers. That thing took waves better than the Viking I went offshore on, better than the yellowfin I went offshore on.
We gotta get the video of you with the hair, with the you were cruising around taking 4-footers. You're smiling.
We'll splice that in here. I'll send you that. I don't even know if Travis knew I took that, but yeah, the coolest thing, and I might sound stupid here to the bass angling world, but when it was very windy, so we kind of had to, pulse through waves, take our time. But when you come around points when we're protected, I mean, you hammered that thing. What's the top speed on that boat? I feel like we hit it that day. It took all my hair off the top of my head.
Yeah, just like a typical bass boat, you're going to be in your low 70s.
Insane.
Yeah.
I just remember, so I grew up on boats. You got the hand throttle, right? And I'm sitting there. I mean, wind's blasting me in the face. So I'm kind of like tucked in like this, kind of looking at Travis, like running the boat. And we would come around a point and like he would step on it and would throw me in the back of the seat. But he's got 2 hands on the steering wheel. And I'm like, for like 9 hours, I'm like, how is he accelerating? Like, he's not doing anything. I go, how do you like accelerate? He's like, what do you mean? I go, your hands are on the wheel. He goes, it's got a gas pedal, bro. I go, it's got a gas pedal? He goes, yeah, they all do.
Well, hold on. I didn't say gas pedal. You mentioned that. And I kind of like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm an idiot.
It's
It
just
sounds
a
like
hot
a gas,
foot.
a hot foot.
That's
I just like I grew up, you got the throttle.
I just figured everybody knew that.
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
No.
I haven't been on like a legit bass boat. I'm like
Okay.
more kind of inshore, offshore, saltwater stuff. But
Canoes.
I was like, my mind was blown. Like, thing's got a gas pedal, bro. I came back and told the guys, Trav's boat's got a gas pedal.
He did. That was the first thing he brought up about the
Wow.
boat.
That thing, it's sick.
That
dude.
and how fast you ripped into spots.
Yeah,
Sure.
He
dude.
was blown
I
away.
was so like nervous and embarrassed. Like, it was opening week of bass. Like the lake was littered with people everywhere. And Travis was like, this is where we're going. And there was like a couple guys kind of nearby. And we would roll in doing like 65. And I'm like, you gonna stop? He's like, you getting nervous, bro? I go, yeah, I'm getting nervous. Like, and he would let off the gas pedal and the boat would just come right to, a screeching halt. But yeah, you kind of made me nervous there, bro.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
First time I'm hearing about it now.
You asked me, you go, you nervous, bro? I'm like,
Styled.
I go a little.
Wow, I just
You
You're
probably
like,
just look at his hair and his face and
yeah.
know
you
that.
seem fine.
All right.
I mean, I think you put the first like dozen fish in the boat.
I did.
before me.
That's
You
why I'm
accused
upset.
Me, that's why you think the video is sabotage.
Yes.
because-
So we filmed an episode for Smallmouth Crush. I drove 2.5 hours up to fish with Travis. It was 45 degrees out. It was blowing 30. It was awful. And I'm like, whatever, we're gonna make a video today. And 2 months later, I'm like, hey, did you ever post that video? He goes, oh, the footage. I'm like, what do you mean the footage? Like, this is what you do for like your life. He's like, it came out bad and blurry. I'm like, what the? Come on, bro. Because I stick the first 3 fish. Travis gets one. I get like 3 more. Travis is fishing.
You're feeling good.
I'm talking shit into the camera, holding the fish. I go 6-1, 6-1. He can't hear me. So I'm like, wait till he goes through this footage. He's going to be like, that kid.
That guy.
So anyways, he did. Maybe I caught more fish. Maybe I didn't. The goal was to break my personal best, which was like 3.5 pounds. Honestly, we probably did it a couple times, but they weren't that much bigger than 3.5 pounds. So we said we didn't. But the bag that you would have weighed in was much. I mean, you got a couple 4.5s,
Yeah, I had
5s
some
that
solid
day.
fish, sure.
Mine were all dinks.
All I heard about was the crappie.
Yeah. So, all right. So we fished pretty much all day. I mean, we fished for a long time that day, and we went to a spot where Travis was like, we're gonna go here before we take out, call it a day, and I stick a crappie. We're like, that's funny. Stick another one. That's funny. Stick another one, and it's massive. He's like, you catch one more of those and putting it in the live well. Dude, we stuck it out in the spot for like 2 hours hammering crappie. I think we put like 6 or 7 megas in the live well at that point. He's like, I got one more spot. So we go by the boat launch. We go into this area. It's a secret area. We can't show anyone this spot. No. I mean, this is like epic crappie fishing, both for size and numbers.
This is all in the drop shot, or you guys fishing?
Oh yeah, we fished the same rig for the crappie that we did for small. Like I said,
but when we came upon the first spot, your first fish, or I don't know who caught the first crappie.
I did.
Okay,
it was small. It wasn't
that was
a mega.
on a Ned rig.
Yeah,
and then we put the Great Lakes Finesse drop minnow on.
Yep, and we were switching colors because we would get like 4 or 5. Then we were getting short hits, and then Travis put a different color on. Boom, boom, boom. So like they were on to us, but thankfully you carry like 40 different colors of Great Lake Finesse stuff because we were rolling through different colors, and it was keeping their interest, and it worked for sure.
Yeah, we put on a real small, I think 16th ounce.
Tiny.
Yeah. Jig head. And basically we were looking them on the electronics, so we were swimming that bait through them.
Yep.
And then we would get our fish. And then that second stop, I just knowing, kind of having some knowledge of that area, I just assumed that if they were on that spot, they're going to be on another spot.
A little bit of current.
And they were.
Yeah. They were loaded.
Every cast.
It got pretty goofy. You remember 13 in a row.
Yeah.
Megas. I was just talking so much shit. I'm like,
I think
11,
caught hundreds of
12.
When you get big crappie, you just get cocky. My roommate, he pulled like 5 through the ice in like 15 minutes, and you could have swore he was the new Jesus.
It got to the point where I go, Trav, what's the limit?
Just makes you feel good.
What's the limit on crappie? We're there looking up New York State where he's like, all right, we're good. But we were throwing back good crappie because we were catching massive crappie.
Are all the fish good to eat out of Ontario?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I know around like Rochester and Oswego, when you get close into the bays, you definitely have a lot of post-industrial.
I'm sure. But this is, there's nothing up there anyways as far as that. But yeah, you want to catch crappie when it's a little colder, the meat's a little firmer or whatever. So, but it was great. Like I'm still eating it till this day. We had fish tacos the other night.
Well, and that brings me up to the next kind of point on this. I decided to put a few in the live well and take them home. And so eventually live well was like getting full of them. And I'm like, well, it's time to head in. Life was good. Obviously I'm up here for an extended period of time. I'm not going to be able to do anything with a bunch of fish fillets for being up here for 2 weeks.
Nope.
And I assume that the person in the boat kind of was aware of that. And so we get back to the boat ramp and I go, well, I'll get you a bag. And I start dumping these crappies in the bag. And he goes, well, that's good. Like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm like, there's still a bunch more in here. And I kept going. And I just assumed that you knew you were going to be taking all these fish back.
No.
He got you a bag, at least.
Dude, it took me 3 hours to clean crappie the next day.
I know. I saw
3 hours. I mean,
you're just not used to clean crappie.
No, I'm not. I'm glad I did it. Now, what's funny is the DC was there when we pulled in. And they stopped us to say, like, how'd you guys do? Yeah. And we showed them the crappie we caught, and they're like, oh my God. They were impressed too. They're like, keepity bass? No. They're like, anything else? I go, well, we got these crappie. And Trav pulls them up. They're like, Jesus. Yeah. They were impressed. So that was pretty funny.
Still waiting on some of that crappie.
Yeah.
I was supposed to get some on the way home.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyways.
How often are you having clients that are like, we just want to catch fish, or people specifically contacting you just to chase, big smallmouth?
Yeah.
So pretty much it's all pretty hardcore anglers.
Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of have a little disclaimer on my website when it comes to clients. So I tend not to guide anybody from this state, as well as tournament anglers. And that is just to kind of keep the pressure off of areas. You know, I just want to kind of protect that. So if there's somebody around here that wants to go out and, you know, they don't have their own boat and they're not going to be out there every weekend, I'll make some exceptions.
Like
but
me.
Yeah, but a lot of times our clients are flying in and they're with me for 2 or 3 days in a row, and they're from out of state, and that's a lot of the clients that I do have. So they're all pretty much hardcore anglers that know what they're doing. Because listen, it's not easy. I get requests here and there from people like vacationing, say they go to A Bay and they just want to go catch some fish.
Sure.
I'm not the guy for them.
Yep.
Because I don't know how to just randomly go out and have fun, like not have fun, but just randomly throw a bait around and
catch whatever,
get bites.
Yeah.
Whether it be smallmouth or not. Like I'm gonna have to be standing on the boat. I don't really fish when I'm guiding. I'm sitting there pointing and showing them which way to cast and how to work their bait and kind of direct them and stay on these fish, because I have to work for them every day. It's not like you see. It's not like the movies, right? Some days it is, but a lot of times it's you're working very hard for that big bag. Like you're getting 6, 7 true, you know, big smallmouth a day, and that's it.
You ever have clients that are disappointed with the day because of like maybe fish size or fish quantity?
No, it's quite the opposite. I may be extremely disappointed and they're super excited.
I mean, you were like that when we went.
They had the best day of their life, and I'm like, well, this was the worst trip of the week here, bud.
That's the way it was. Like, I was like, that was awesome. You're like, that was really slow. I was like, dude, I caught 13 smallmouth and they're all over 2.5, 3 pounds. But
I mean, with electronics now, it's like, I mean, I know some of your clients might not be as dialed in to what they're seeing in front of them left to right, but for you, I mean, you got to be able to tell, like, yeah, there's like a pile of 4s, 5s on this, you know, rock pile, and they won't eat, and your client's just like,
you should see the screens he has on his boat.
I know. So it's like,
they're bigger than that TV at my house. He has 3 of them on the bow of the boat. They're all doing something different. He's looking, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I just keep, finally after like 13 hours, I realized that what I'm like, oh, you can see him.
You're just reading the depth. You're like, oh yeah, 15 feet.
Yeah, he goes, I'm like, oh, you can see him on here. He goes, no shit, bro. That's what I've been looking at all day. So anyways, I just like
12 feet deep.
How much,
we're looking good.
What do you think? Like, I'm talking the rods, the graphs, everything in that boat, even the trailer. Like, how much do you feel like is invested in your equipment, like dollar wise?
Oh man.
I mean, it's like insane here.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Couple $100,000, you know?
I wouldn't say a couple 100,000.
Close to. That boat ain't cheap.
No.
The trailer's badass.
It is. And full disclaimer, I would not ever pay full retail for all of that.
Sure.
It'd be ridiculous.
I mean, you got 20 grand of master braid on your boat spooled up in spin gear. So that's at least $20K.
That's true. That's true. It's expensive, but at the same time, if you want to fish at that level, I feel electronics are part of it. Everything's. I do run all the high-end stuff because this is what I do. This is all I know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know much more about, I just fish. I fish. That's all I talk about. That's all I think about.
Sure.
If we go to some type of function that I'm dragged to, that there's a bunch of people in the room that don't fish, like I have no clue.
Dude, we're the same way.
I
Like,
have no clue.
I usually go around, like my wife drags me somewhere, meet other dudes, try to film, like, hey, do any fishing, hunting? Nope. Okay, see ya. I try to find some dude that I can like chat with to get out of this situation at a party. And sometimes you're right, you don't find those guys, and you just, you know, sit at the bar the rest of the night by yourself. Then your wife hates you. Well, anyways, I'm glad you're here, dude. It's nice to have you in studio. When we were thinking about starting this podcast a few months ago in the summer, we're like, you know, all these ideas are kicking around. Like, who are we going to get on? You know, and I think Ricky was like, I think Jimmy Kimmel fishes. Let's get Jimmy Kimmel. I'm like, yo, let's bring us back to reality here. Right. Like, who we actually
wanted Wade Boggs.
Yeah, Wade Boggs.
Boggs.
I mean, not that you're not Jimmy Kimmel. Don't get me wrong, but you were coming on the show no matter what.
Sure.
We felt like you were a dynamite first guest because you do this as a living.
Mm-hmm.
A couple months ago when we were thinking about it, I thought you'd be a great guest because in case Ricky and I sucked at this, I felt like you could unconsciously take over the show and host it for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you guys did a great job.
So anyways,
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here. So how did you get linked up with Cortland? You know what I mean? Like, where did this all start? I mean, I honestly have forgotten. It's not like,
right.
We reached out to you and we're like, hey, let's work. You know what I mean? Like,
so I use a braid on all my spinning rods pretty much 100% of the time. And I have a lot.
Yeah,
we know
a ton,
probably 25.
Yeah, we know
setups. And everyone's got a different application. You got to remember, if I'm fishing a drop shot and let's say I'm casting a drop shot, not dropping down, but casting. Well, there's a specific rod for that versus one that I would use if I'm just dropping on fish. And so if I'm guiding, I'm taking myself and 2 other people in the boat. And if I do fish, so at bare minimum, I need 3 of those setups, right? If we're on a spy bait bite, I need 3 of those setups. Hair jig bite, 3 of those setups. And all the spinning rods do different, do the job. So that's why I run so many different spinning rods, because of clients and things like that. Or just the fact that if you're drop shotting, you might want to have 2 that are set up with a certain size weight and 2 with a lighter weight. And if you break one off in the tournament, you pull one out of the box. So anyways, I ran a lot. I use a lot of braid. And for the most part, I was happy with the braid, but I got to the point where I got into the higher, like the high vis or the brighter color braids. And I tried some company's braided line that was that high vis and just faded really quick on me. And I wasn't really happy with it. And so I went back to, the moss green or the blacks or whatever. And I always knew there was a benefit because I can't see that braid that well, whether it be the green or black or whatever.
Yep.
And I feel like there's a huge benefit, especially smallmouth fishing in different certain applications, that I'm like, man, I really want to use this high vis braid, but I don't know any company out there that it lasts long enough. I can't afford to keep switching braid out every couple weeks. And so a friend of mine mentioned Cortland, and I didn't even know, like, I never even heard of you guys.
Sure.
Okay. No clue. I'm like, oh, that sounds okay. I'll look into it. So I go on the website and I was kind of blown away, right? Because I was like, I never knew about these guys. They've been around forever. They're into all kinds of stuff when it comes to different fishing line and what they get into. And I'm like, all right. So I ordered a bunch and I got it. I put it on. I'm like, this is very close, if not better than the current line that I use. How long is this going to last, though, this high vis? So I used it for a month, still worked good, still looked good. And that's when I reached out to you guys and said, hey, I'd love to work with you and switch over all my braid. Now, I'm sure you weren't like prepared for the amount of braid that I use.
I'm still not.
But it's working out great. And I'm a huge fan of the 5, 8, 10, all that light. Of course, I use heavier braid, but 80% of the time.
I was actually blown away fishing the 8-pound on, like, I don't really bass, like I bass fish, but not on your level. So when we went out and fished 8-pound master braid, I was just like,
a lot of it was 5 as well.
Yes. Hesitant to set the hook really hard. I would catch a fish and kneel over the side of the boat and try to lip it. Travis is like, bro, you take forever to land these fish. He's flipping stuff in the boat. I thought I was going to break it.
Right.
By the end of the trip, I was like, our braid is so strong.
Oh, yeah.
It is so smooth. Like I sell the braid. I'm a sales rep for Cortland. We obviously make it on the other side of this wall, but I had never been so impressed with like just seeing it in that fishing scenario. Stuff dynamite, dude. Yeah. So anyway, we team up. I was hesitant. I mean, you got to understand, like small company, we're all, involved in marketing here. We get emails like, hey, I'm a YouTuber.
Right.
Let's send me some free stuff here. So I thought, I'm like, oh, it's Travis guy's like a dork, And then
Well,
I started,
hold on.
No,
First-
we had people in the back.
We did.
Yeah,
we,
no.
had, we had some
Caleb and
guys
Corey.
nudge me along. They're like, no, this dude's legit.
Yeah, but
And
here's
I
what
called
happened.
You.
So
We're like, get this guy on board.
I sent an email to you and I get a
Yeah.
reply from someone in the company. And they're like, we'll give you a little discount. Here's a code. And I went back to my buddy Eric, Epic Eric. I go, he's like, did you reach out to Cortland? I go, yeah, they sent me a little product code. He's like, dude, he's like, no, you call them again and you tell them that you love their product and you're going to be able to promote their product effectively, efficiently and use it. And they'll hook you up. I'm like, you think so? He's like, yeah, put a phone call in. So I think prior to that, even before the phone call, you reached back out to me.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, let's work on getting you on board. So that's really how it materialized.
I had to test the waters with you. I didn't know, like
Yeah.
I said, I'm a YouTuber. So you got to watch out for those guys. There's hundreds of thousands of them out
There's a
there.
lot of YouTubers out there.
Only one smallmouth crush though.
No, it is
Right.
true. So anyways, you had me on your live show, which was
That was good.
awesome. That was like kind of right in COVID. There's a lot of podcasts going on then, but that was a ton of fun. I love watching your show now that I've been a guest on there. I get a kick out of it. Like I'll tune in from time to time and it's funny. Like Eric's hilarious. JP, your boy, he's funny on there. Who's the Alex guy behind the scenes? Is
Alex the intern. Yes.
he's great. Anyways, it's just very entertaining. It's good information. It's never, it's always about something different. So I like it. I think you guys, that are watching this should tune into it. Especially if you're a bass angler, even if you're not. It's just fun, good stuff. There's always, every time I tune in, there's something crazy going on that I missed.
At times. It's
So
not every time.
it's always something. And anyways, it kind of brings me to my next point. So I'm watching this one episode. I tune in, I'm like laying in bed, kind of kids are sleeping, wife's sleeping, and I tune in and Travis is talking about this tournament he fished in Wisconsin. And some stuff went down where he started the tournament like practice day, right? And then didn't end up getting to fish in the tournament because you brought a step ladder on a boat.
Right.
You brought a step ladder on a boat, and there was
it started out.
there was a rule.
Yes. So
Do you mind talking
apparently-
about this?
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean, you can
mind.
keep it,
I don't
G-rated.
mind at all.
I just think there's like, you made a mistake, no heart, but I think it was hilarious listening to the show.
Sure.
One,
I think it's very
because
informational.
One, because like it was in the rules, and Eric, his like boy's partner, was just like ripping on you on the show, which is you're like,
Right.
I thought we were a team here, Eric.
Yeah.
But he didn't hold back
it
at all.
started out with a step stool earlier in the week. So
like a
I was
kitchen
like,
step stool,
like
one-
8 inches
yeah,
off the ground.
Okay.
Not a big deal. And then it turned into like one of them like 8-foot folding ladders by the end of the
So
week.
let me
Pretty
stop.
quick.
So
Pretty quick.
I knew something was going on, but I couldn't. So this show aired a little bit after this all went down, but I'm looking at Travis's like stories on his Instagram, and it's all these people posting, and he's reposting it of like guys on ladders, or a ladder on a boat, a ladder on a t-shirt. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
going on here?
Right.
So then your show aired, and it
Mhm.
clicked.
Yeah.
So all right, finish up. What went
Long
down
story
here?
short, so I used a ladder to be able to visually see the fish. And here's everyone's picking on me, like, because my partner JP is even taller than myself.
Yeah, you're what, 6'3"?
Yeah. So they're like, why do you even need a ladder? But it's amazing once you get up a foot, 2, 3,
or 8?
or in my case, 8, what you can see up there versus down, just staying at on the boat. And so I knew there was some gray area. I called the tournament director and said, I'm going to be using a ladder. He's like, I think you're okay, but read the rules, whatnot. Well, the night of the meeting, I approached the tournament director to make sure I could use this in the actual tournament the next
Just
day.
double checking here, right?
Double checking. Well, turns out that the day before the actual event was what they call an official practice. And during official practice, you have to follow official tournament rules. So I could use that ladder Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but on Friday, I could not use the ladder. But I did use the ladder on Friday, and somebody saw me use that ladder that decided to protest me, probably because we were on the same group of big 6-pound smallmouth.
Right.
And so they decided to go their way to file the protest, and they demanded I was DQ'd permanently.
Didn't it cost money to protest?
Yes.
Permanently.
Well, they wanted me gone.
Permanently.
So the director said, hey, we might make you the last boat out. We might,
Right. Try to ding you
Chances
a little bit.
are this guy's 5'9".
ding me a little bit. So
He's just pissed.
He's just jealous. He's like, sees Travis in the same bay. He's like, I got to get this guy
He's up
out of here.
25 feet.
So he's like, he really made it clear he wanted me gone. And so I told the tournament director, who's also a friend of mine, I'm like,
you mentioned
I don't
that.
want any issues here.
Right.
If the dude wants me out, I'll see you. Not a big deal. I broke the rules,
Right.
And so we just packed up and left. But
It costs money to contest, right? I remember tuning in your show, and he's like, "Yeah, if you want to like contest, another angler, it costs money." And you go, "That guy peeled out of the driveway so fast to go to an ATM and came back."
How confident were you feeling going into this tournament that you had a chance to be in top 10? Top 5?
Probably each day as the ladder got taller,
That's what I'm
you got
saying.
more
He's just
cocky.
like-
we would have been.
He
right
knows
there.
he's got him mapped out.
We would have had to work for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Like anything.
Feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's too bad. Anyways,
Yeah,
I thought it was
awesome.
funny. I know that when we were fishing, you were like, it is what it is.
They
But
allow all this expensive electronics and
right. You just got
things,
some
but you
Home
can't
Depot
get something to
step
help you get a
ladder.
little bit taller.
It's interesting.
I think it's a terrible rule. It's just like anything, like a flogger or it's like any tool in fishing. Flogger is something you use during this spawn, during tournaments where you can actually helps you see the fish a little bit better and how they react to your baits.
What is that? What is it?
It basically put it in the water and it shows you, it's a clear cone that allows you to see under the water. So it cuts off all the glare. If it's cloudy, you can see what's going on down there. So that's a tool. Your forward-facing sonar, that's another tool. But as good as those tools are, if you don't know how to use a flogger, there's plenty of people that, every person that's going to come up here during the spawn event, they're going to have a flogger. But only a small percentage of people actually know how to really use that. It's a lot more to it than just stick it in the water. Same thing with your forward-facing sonar. You can all buy your forward-facing sonar. And that's why I don't understand all these tournaments, individuals, people that are complaining about it and saying it should be banned or it's wrong. Like, there's days I can't catch a fish with all my electronics. Believe me, it's you still have to know how to use it and be around them.
Sure.
Okay, it's not like as easy as all these people think.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have the proper tools, it's just like a ladder. I think there's gonna be guys that'll use ladders as well, but they're I mean, how many guys can balance and cast and drive a trolling motor and put and move through an area quick to see what they got to see? You know what I mean? Not too many. So I don't think it's not going to ruin anything.
It's where it's
allowing these tools.
Where do you draw the line? And with electronics, I feel like they've already passed that line.
There's a lot of
in terms
things like that.
Yeah,
with
if you're trying to, but if
technology.
you're trying to keep it like super competitive to where you can't use a ladder,
I mean, I would have what they call, what is it down the saltwater guys, a tower?
Yeah.
I'd have a tower on my
I
boat,
just
hands
like
down.
crack up
The
picturing
first.
you walking to your boat on that Friday with an 8-foot step ladder going by the other anglers.
Well, it was
and they're
already
just
laid
like,
out on the back of the boat. All I did,
you had to set it up.
so I was able to use the trolling motor with a remote, and I would just stand up there and be able to kind of get a better visual. What
Were you sitting at the very top of the ladder?
No, I was standing.
Okay.
I was standing.
Anyways,
I don't think I would sit.
I was
That'd be a
gonna
little too
say,
scary.
yeah.
I need to be able to catch myself.
I like the Instagram post that people were like kind of jabbing at you, making fun of you, that you just rolled with it and reposted it. That made it even
Sure.
better.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it is cool. Like, I remember when
Got
you
me thinking.
when you posted about your tournament, someone goes, "Hey, can we bring a ladder?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's actually encouraged."
Right.
So you know,
So my event ladders were not banned. If you wanted to bring a ladder, you could.
Yeah.
I did not use the ladder in that event.
hey, goof
was
up,
fun.
you got to roll with it. You know,
Mhm.
it's when you get defensive that people keep kind of poking
Sure.
at you. You know what I mean?
Listen, I really, I take a lot. Like, I don't have too many haters out there, but I think I have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And you know, some video is sensitive to some people,
Sure.
right? I mean, it could be a variety of subjects, but one could hit home with someone. And I just have to put myself in their place, but also realize that I can't worry about what other people think or how they feel. You all heard of that term where you're like living free in someone's mind, like rent free, right? Like I always use that as like, I don't want to be that guy that's like, you know, hold grudges or get mad or just like, I'm worried about anybody else. Like if they got issues with what I did and this is how they're going to act.
There's a lot of haters out there right now.
Fine.
With social media and being able to comment, you know, from a phone or at a desk, and there's just so many haters out there.
I don't get too many of that.
You don't on your show.
I don't mind when I do.
I know.
It's entertaining for me a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, you get all the, hey, what's your favorite, you know, length rod and great video. Good job, guys. I love it when you get that one dude that's like, you know, you selfish little, you know, whatever the case may be. It's always interesting.
Well, you know, you're doing it right when you got a couple haters.
Right.
If you don't have any haters,
not that I encourage everybody to hate.
No, but you know, you got to step your game up a little bit. Well, anyway, speaking of questions, our boy Scott McCann from customer service, Scotty Too Hottie. Scotty's going to be coming in here. So what we do, we get a social media post out in advance of the podcast, basically asking for customer questions as they pertain to the guests. Like, hey guys, what do you want to hear answered from either us or our in-house guest, or whether it's a Zoom guest? So we kind of pick, you know, the top questions related to our guests and see if we can answer those for
Let's do it.
Some people. So, all right, Ricky, jump up. Scotty Boy's going to jump in here. If you guys have called Cortland customer service, if you have emailed info@cortlandline.com, you have probably chatted with Scotty. Scott, where are you from?
I'm from Port Washington on Long Island.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did we dig? How did you come to Cortland from Long Island?
I mean, I moved up here just because I wanted to get away from Long Island mostly.
Rightly so. Not that there's anything wrong with Long Island. It's just it's busy.
Yeah, I wanted something a little quieter.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'd been working at a music store in Syracuse for 2 years.
You're a guitar player, right?
Yeah.
Scotty Wales.
I do a little bit.
You went to see what Santana last night?
Santana last night with Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Did you envision yourself on the stage just shredding?
No, but I was paying very close attention to the screens of him playing so I could kind of figure out some licks and riffs and stuff.
When's your next
Saturday
in
Baldwinsville.
Are you just gonna like close your eyes and think you're Santana up on stage?
Maybe. I don't know. My last gig, I threw the guitar behind my head, did that little trick.
How'd that work out for you?
It was cool. People freaked out. So
all right, Scotty, first question, let it rip, man. What do we got here?
Yeah, so I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what's your preferred braid color for drop shot fishing and why? Okay,
so you would kind of answer that with high vis. Do you think you would prefer a brighter color braid than the current yellow offered in Cortland Master Braid?
Would I prefer a brighter one?
Yeah, like this lava lamp over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what that person was asking, we did cover a little bit, but let me take it a step further and just talk about some of the other colors, if I could, that you guys use or that you guys offer. So I use really most of the time it's going to be the high vis yellow and it's going to be the white.
Yep.
And if I'm making a retrieve with the bait through the water column, so let's say I'm throwing a swim bait or a spy bait or a hair jig and I'm swimming it back to the boat, I prefer to have a white braid. And I just think that allows it to blend in as the fish is looking up with the sky. And so the neat thing about that is the white still stands out very well.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely not camouflage. I can see that almost as good as the high vis yellow.
Sure.
And the high vis yellow, of course, is going to be used especially, I mean, there's a number of reasons why, but if you start fishing with 2 or 3 people in the boat and they're all focused on casting in the front of the boat as a piece of structure, I mean, you kind of know where everyone's line is. I can see my customers' bites a lot of times before they even know they have a bite. I can say, hey, set the hook.
Right.
Or, why aren't you setting the hook? Do it all the time, right? Even with the high-end rods, like you got to be in tune with what's going on and focused. And so that allows me to kind of keep everybody in check. It also, of course, allows me when I'm just out by myself to be able to see that line, know where it's at, know if it's falling, maybe a fish hit it and the line stopped.
You see the jump or like
jump, yeah, sooner than I expected it to. And so I recommend that high vis on any type of bottom bait, whether it be a Ned, tube, drop shot, any of that. Now, everyone's got different, eyes when it comes to seeing line. And so like my buddy Epic Eric, he prefers that blue, which, I mean, I'm sure it's fine. It's just not
works for him.
Works for him. Like he's dead set on it. And so you got to experiment and see which one works best.
But for you, as far as Cortland,
high vis yellow, white.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true, but I also heard like bass can't see yellow or something.
Can they not see certain colors as well as
I
others?
have no idea. I'm not a fish.
Like their retinas. I don't know.
We have no idea. How do we know that?
I don't know. Well,
There's
last
no way
year when
we
you're
can
like,
know.
I want to try white because bass are going to look up at the sky.
That's just a theory.
I know, but you have theories.
I have theories, but I don't know the truth about it.
All right.
No clue.
People say that pink fluorocarbon is invisible.
No, people say a lot of stuff. Listen, I honestly feel like we worry too much about that. I think if you're using braid with some sort of finesse bait and you have some type of leader, fluorocarbon, whatever you're going to use, 6, 8, 10.
Yep.
And you put 3 to 12 foot
floral leader on there
of leader.
Yep.
You don't have a problem at all.
Sure.
I think you can use straight braid and get away with it many times if that application allows it. Like, I don't think, give these fish too much credit. The only thing lighter line, in my opinion, is going to do is going to allow that bait to work maybe a little bit differently. Offer that bait, because think of just the baits that we use. Like, I don't even know what this thing is. It's a fly, I assume, right? But does that look like a real thing?
Does not.
No, neither does the plastics that we throw to these bass. Like, if they're going to bite a piece of plastic 3 inches long, are they really worried about what that's attached to?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sold on that yet. I do know that going lighter, though, or even going lighter on a smaller hook, let's say you want a different action. You want to really keep that bait above or gently rise that bait. The smaller the hook, so it doesn't weigh that plastic down to make it fall quicker. The lighter line is going to allow that bait to kind of flow a little bit better than the heavier line might drag it down. So there is reasons for going lighter on the line. I just don't think it's because that fish sees the line.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of actually leads into our next question here. Is there a performance difference between like a 4 carrier braid and an 8 carrier braid?
So here's what I found. And it doesn't matter. The reason why I like 5 pound, the lightest I can get, is I feel like when I'm dropping down on a fish, I want as least resistance as possible. Meaning I want to get that bait
cutting through the water.
Yep. I also want to be able to make a really long and accurate cast. And I feel like the lighter you can get away with, the better you are.
Got it.
But at the same time, I've had a rod, and even your 10-pound braid is like, that's what most anglers are used to. Like most smallmouth guys and people that bring on my boat, they use 10, 15, 20. They don't know anything about the 8 or nothing about the 5. And it's not in their reality, right? They just don't have experience with it. Once they start using it, they're like, oh, this makes sense. But at the same time, if you're comfortable with 10 or 15, you can get the job done just as well. I will step it up in that 20 if I'm like deep dragging, if I'm working the football head, like a 1/2 ounce, or if I'm fishing largemouth around certain like structure, whether it be docks. We fish Chesapeake a lot, so some of those tidal waters, you're going to have some barnacles and things like that, that besides having a leader, like a fluorocarbon leader, your braid, after throwing a plastic way back under, it's still going to nick or still going to hit stuff. And so I will step it up there. And of course, I use a lot of your heavier flipping braids and in that 50 to 65 and higher class for different like frogs and big swim baits and things like that. So I don't think there's a wrong way of going about it, but I think it just comes down to confidence in what you have, you know, what you're used to using. And for me, it's hard for me to go much more larger braid for smallmouth applications than 8.
Makes sense.
Cool.
All right. What's next, Scotty?
Just some tips on how do you prevent wind knots when casting braid.
That's a good one.
When we fished, like I said, we fished for an honest like 10, 11 hours. I mean, we made how many casts the whole day? Together?
A lot.
Like a ton. I think we had 1 wind knot that day.
Sure.
And it was kind of like a goofy instance with trying to target crappie and stuff. But I did notice you cast a little goofy.
Sure.
And you know you do. Like I flipped the bail open. I grabbed the line but you use 2 hands, do you not?
Yeah, I do kind of like a slingshot.
Does anyone else do that? I mean, dude, honestly, it was weird. I was telling these guys yesterday, they're like, no, he doesn't do that. I'm
Sure
like,
I do.
he uses 2 hands to cast a spin reel.
So to prevent wind knots, I think the number one thing is filling your spool properly. So if you have too little or too much, especially if you have too much and you try to make that cast, that's where you're going to have some problems.
Jumps off the reel faster.
And it's difficult sometimes for me because here's the deal, because you're using 5-pound braid and these reels, especially if you're using like a 3000 series, which I do, you got to put a lot of backing, like a lot of backing, unless you want to fill it all with braid, which doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And so you have to time it right. You have to look at it. And then you have to say, okay, I'm going to put 100, 150. I try to do about 150 yards. I think I can go with a lot less, but I do make a lot of reties and connecting fluorocarbon to the braid throughout, the week or 2 or 3. I mean, a lot of my braid I started with is still on my spools, from earlier in the season. So you want to time it right. And I actually use a little device made by Rapala that counts the braid that's going in. So I know exactly how many feet of braid I have on. And so if you get it right, you shouldn't have as many problems, as well as the way you cast. That's going to help eliminate any wind knots. So if you're getting a lot of wind knots, and I've had some bad spinning reels too, believe it or not, from very reputable companies that I use all the time. I might buy 20 of them, and one of them is going to be a little funky. Like I notice that it's off somehow.
Tolerances.
And I'm getting, it happened 3 weeks ago. I literally got a wind knot on every cast and every other cast. And I was starting to get really upset. I'm like, this is weird. Am I casting wrong? What am I doing wrong here?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized it was a new reel that I put on. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I actually that night took all the braid off and redid it, and it still did it. And so I had to send that in because there's just something wasn't right with the spool or how
That's
it's
interesting.
spaced.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, that's great.
There
All
you
right,
go.
last question here, Scotty.
Okay. Yeah. How do your tactics differ for targeting smallmouth in the summer versus the fall?
How late do you fish up there?
It's as
St.
long
Lawrence,
as long as I can get the boat in.
So yeah, we're getting deep into fall here soon, and like, what do you do from like August to October? Like, how does the bait change? Do the fish? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's because Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River is so massive, you have different groups of smallmouth there. You're going to have a group of smallmouth that's going to live in a certain area year round. They're going to spawn there. They're going to hang out in the summer. They're going to hang out in the fall, and they're going to winter there. You're going to have other groups that are going to migrate, and they're going to be what I call like perch eaters. They're going to follow massive groups of perch as they move into the fall transition as well. So you have that going for you. And then you also have different sections of the lake. Some sections fish totally different than other sections. I got a couple areas where I really believe that those smallmouth feed on crayfish, like exclusively. That's all they eat. And I have other areas that I know they're goby eaters or they're chasing smelt alewives and things like that. So nothing, I will throw more reaction baits in the fall, meaning maybe swim baits, spinner baits, chatter baits, jerk baits, Alabama rigs versus drop shotting and Ned rigging and stuff, but I'll go back and forth, just like I'll still throw an A rig in July. Like, I guess I can't, it's hard for me to answer that. So it's really based on so many different scenarios. And also it's based on how you want to fish. Like, the Great Lakes are the perfect place to be able to fish your strengths. Like, you don't have to fish a Ned rig exclusively. You don't have to, you can throw a crankbait.
Yeah, there's not one thing
all year long and have a blast with it. Absolutely. So I really just follow, like,
sounds like it's too diverse of a fishery within itself that basically you just got to know what's going on at certain times of the year. It's not like you mentioned, it's not like the same body of fish and all of a sudden it gets a little later and they start to flip and do something. It's just like kind of different groups of going on.
You know, the biggest tip I can give you is there's always fish shallow and there's always fish deep out there. There's always fish in 4 feet of water or less. I don't care if it's April or November or July. It's always fish in 4 feet of water. Just like there's always going to be fish out in that 18 to 35 foot range. Well, maybe not during the spawn, but at the same time, not all of the mature smallmouth spawn on that given year. So it's not like they all go to the bank or go super, super shallow. There's always going to be fish. That's not always your best bet to have a really successful day, but there's going to be fish in those zones pretty consistently.
All right. Thanks, Scotty. Cool. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Get back out on the phones. Make a sale. Fix some stuff here. Scott McCann, everyone. Scotty, easy bub. All right, Ricky, jump back in here. No, when we went fishing, like we noticed, it was like mid-June. I don't even think we saw a bed going around the shallows, which I know you thought was weird. And me being an inexperienced bass angler, like I'm thinking it's June, like you're going to see remnants of a spawning bed right somewhere. We fished a ton of spots and I think we saw like one bed. And even you were like, this is kind of odd. Not that we were targeting fish on beds because we weren't, but just combing the shoreline, eating lunch, just kind of looking around. Like maybe it was just kind of a different type year as far as that spawn goes in that area.
That area.
Is it?
Yeah.
Anyways. Hey, you got anything for Travis? You had he mentioned something about hooks.
Yeah.
You said something yesterday about like hooks sizes.
Yeah, and that's what we were wondering. Coming from a fly fishing side of it, our hook sizes go down to less than half a centimeter, if we're going to put it like that. Super thin wire. And they usually sit pretty well in trouts, mouths, bass, whatever we're targeting. But with bass flies and with bass fishing, the hooks are thicker than my knee. It's crazy for some of these like swim baits, weightless stuff. And I know with smallmouth fishing with finesse, you get away with a lot of smaller hooks. Brooks was mentioning that you were fishing a lot of thinner wire stuff. Do you feel there's a major advantage going from smallmouth to largemouth with that thin of a hook?
Or size of a hook, like the gap of a hook?
Just, is that so much of a play? Because I can't imagine there's that much of a difference between like the toughness of the inside of a mouth of a smallmouth and a largemouth to where you might get better hookup rates, be able to drive the hook deeper, keeping the hook size small rather than kind of falling into. I have some 3/4 ounce jig hooks that, if you do not drill that hook, that hook set, they're not going to stay
Or
on.
does the hook size relate to the plastic you're putting on it? You know what I'm saying?
It's a little bit of that, but it's also the structure and the way you're fishing that bait. So it would be hard for me to go real ultra finesse like I do for these smallmouth and just pretty much rocky, deep water and then go fish heavier structure for largemouth with that same setup, because they're going to dig into that stuff and that hook will pop out even easy. Like it's one of those things where like I'll use a size, say 1 drop shot hook and I'll use that for largemouth as well, but I wouldn't use a lighter wire size 1, which I have for smallmouth in certain situations, just because of the sheer force of being able to get that fish and work him out of that cover quicker than, some of these deeper smallmouth, when we get them hooked up, there's a pretty long fight. They're coming up, they're going down, you're just letting them do their thing. As long as your drag's set properly and that hook's there where it needs to be, you're not going to lose them. But for largemouth, you just can't. I've never. It's very rare that you're going to play largemouth for 5 minutes, where it's a regular occurrence for these smallmouth.
Right.
So I don't know necessarily. I do tell you, I do go light in certain situations if I want that plastic to look more natural. The soft plastics that we use. I've gone. In fact, just this week I used I believe it was a size 8, kind of a light wire, like a bluegill hook, and I was able to hook a couple really big fish with it and a giant 8-pound walleye. So it worked.
Yeah, you crushed walleye the other day.
I used 3-pound leader, 5-pound braid to a 3-pound.
Do you think
leader.
you could go find those fish again?
What's
like,
that? The walleye?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got like a school of 500 right now.
All right. Well, when next time we fish and we smoke smallmouth, we're gonna go get dinner again.
Yeah,
And I will Yeah, that's fine.
That last question. When it comes to pressured largemouth fisheries where you're fishing this kind of more technical structure, and you need to go less than 10-pound fluoro for leader, just to get bites. You're going behind people. When you are tying onto some of these jigs, skirts, what do you have a specific knot that you like over others that seat better with thinner diameter to a fat eye? Because whenever I have to tie on 8-pound onto a heavy jig, I usually tie a uni knot, and it doesn't really seat against the hook of the eye because the damn hook the eye is so fat. So do you do something differently there to kind of make sure that it seats properly?
I tie a polymer quite a bit, but I'll make sure it's got to be tied properly, and it's got to be like, I guess I pay close attention to detail. Like you'll see me if I'm rigging up, if I'm not happy with visually even, like I might test it for strength, and if it still doesn't look good, even that like I'll cut it off and redo it. I mean, I spent like 45 minutes just yesterday trying to tie 3 drop shot hooks for some reason. Like it was bad. I was like, this ain't gonna work. So I guess here's my point. Like you want to tie whatever you feel confident in, but then you want to do like what I call like the break test. So like when I was saying I was using 3-pound the other day as my leader, just to experiment a little bit. When I went to test that, I wasn't testing like I was an 8-pound line, right? Because I know what would happen.
Right.
It would pop. But I want to give it a very good pull, especially if I'm tying a braid to a fluorocarbon knot. I'm gonna, once I cut the tag ends off, I give it really good pulls, because I'd rather have it break right then than when I'm fishing. And so I go through like that. Just test every knot, or if I tie on a bait to the fluorocarbon, I'm going to pull on it super hard, sometimes really quick as well, and just see if it withstood that
shock.
test.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you have to look at is your drag and how that's set, and the rod that you're throwing it on. So, for instance, when I was using that 3-pound leader for smallmouth, and I was fishing fairly deep, 35 feet of water, I would have my drag set as if I was using 8 on the initial hook set, right? So I'm down there, I feel that little tick, which is pretty much what you feel when you're that deep fishing these finesse baits, and I know it's a big one, right? It's just a tick. That's all it is. So the rod's about ready to load up. So I have that drag exactly set how I normally would for the initial hook set, but then I instantly loosen that so that fish can just go wherever it wants, but within reason. Like I'm making him work for where he wants to go, but I'm going to make sure I'm not going to break that 3-pound leader, right? So I'm always messing with the drag. I'm always changing things up. Like I do that quite a bit. As good as the drags are in today's reels, I'm constantly, depending on the situation with that fish, I'm adjusting on the fly.
That makes sense. I mean, fly fishing, you never have a situation where you're tying a fine diameter to a super fat eye of a hook. So getting more into bass fishing, the hook sizes. But when
you just got to test that knot right before you even start fishing.
Yeah,
it's like the worst case scenario. You know what I mean?
Well, just last week, I mean, we were out. No, it was like about 2 weeks now. We were out on a local lake in Syracuse, and my favorite black and blue 3/4 ounce strike lure jig. Took a 4-pounder every trip of the year, and then I banged, I think, super small window, like 4 fish within 20 minutes, and then on the 5th fish, I didn't check the knot, and it broke off. Still haven't been able to find that exact one in the store, but that's a situation where I feel like just a fine diameter to fat eye of the hook after a few fish, you need to make sure you are checking.
Yeah,
every time.
Well, appreciate your knowledge, Travis.
I try.
I think you said it all today. Appreciate you coming by. Although I think you should stop by more, considering that you drive by the plant 15 times a year. So what's up? What's next? Like plug yourself here, like let's, where can people find you? Where, let's, trying to help you out here, bro.
Well, I appreciate that. Listen, smallmouthcrush.com is the website. You can find all my videos on YouTube, Smallmouth Crush. Of course, Instagram, Smallmouth Crush. I opened up a TikTok. I don't know, man. I can't get into it. But I'm on that too.
You're too old for TikTok.
I'm not too old for TikTok. I just, it's too much, man.
I know. There's a lot.
Too overwhelming. Facebook. There's a Smallmouth Crush group. I promise to be more active in it in the future, but I haven't been on in quite a while. Let's be honest with
You're busy.
ourselves.
This is busy season right now.
It's hard. But really the best place is Instagram as well as the YouTube channel. Come on our live, watch our live shows. We love the comments and that the viewers can leave and
the haters
chat with us back and forth. And of course, if you want to book a guide trip, earlier the better.
Yeah.
January, February. Otherwise, we get booked up pretty quick.
Sure. How many months left of that? What do you got?
A few more months of guiding, and then next year I got to really look over the winter months how things are going to unfold for me, and then I'll have to put together that schedule. So I'm sure I'll be guiding just as much, but at some point, hopefully, I'll even have more dates available. Because ultimately, I think the dream job would be to be able to guide more on a full-time basis, meaning like year-round. And not just for bass, because I do love chasing walleyes. And, growing up in Wisconsin, we fished Lake Michigan in a boat for salmon and trout quite a bit. Won a few salmon and trout derbies back in the day. And that's something I'd like to explore up here as well.
All right. So basically, if you're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, the internet, you type in Smallmouth Crush.
It'll come up. I'll be there.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks for coming in, bro.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Thanks,
Thank
Travis.
you, Richard. Great show today. All right, folks. Well, that's it. Hey, listen, if you got any questions, comments for Travis, reach out. Leave us a comment when this podcast airs. Drop us a note at info@cortlandline.com. We'll be chatting with our boy Scotty. Give us a call. We're here to help in any way, shape, or form. So anyways, folks, thanks for joining us today on Cortland Hook the Podcast with our special guest, Travis Manson. Tune in next time. We got another killer guest coming up here. That's all, folks. Let's just say that's 6 or 5.7. Okay. But look at the diameter. So it's 6,000 inch versus 7,000 inch. So tippet that we sell in the fly market, this is rated at a straight pull on the instrument. That's it's industry standard. Leader material is rated with a knot built in. Everyone's leader material is rated with a knot built in. Okay. Small.
Oh, we should, I should do stuff for the,
What are we looking for? Look at an aisle with some lights. I can take some videos. Good aisle. I need to hire you full time, man, to follow me around. I like that. Oh, Brooks. Yep. I got lost in the line. What else you got? What's all this?
Take meters and fly fishing.
Oh, do you have some wire stuff?
This is. Yeah.
What is that?
What? That's to catch tuna.
No, light wire. Anything else you want to steal? Pretty. Not that green part. Like that too? I'll give it a Earl. Which, like I said, diameter to diameter. Bro, I'm gonna be all about fly fishing here in another 2 years.